Hey guys, it's Biggs. Now today, I've got my little helper with me today. Who are you? Come see. Come look this way. Who's this? What's your name?
Paisley.
Paisley? And what are we going to do, Paisley?
I don't know.
You don't what? You don't know? I think today Paisley's going to help me, and I think it's about time that this tank that's been completely neglected for decor, it's basically gotten all the cast-off plants from all the other tank setups, and most of the plants are literally just rolling around and floating in the tank. So I thought, it's about time some of the fish in here actually get a proper setup. So I think, Paisley, what do you think? Should we decorate their tank? Mm-hmm. Okay, let's get to it. Now this tank is one of the tanks that's been kind of a cast-off, as I mentioned earlier. It's a standard 75-gallon aquarium, and in it actually has that big colony of the Xenotoca lion's eye Tamazula. It's a critically endangered livebearer from Mexico, so it's not like I can just get rid of them and give them up to somebody else. I've been spreading fry around a little bit, but because it's a really important C.A.R.E.S fish, I want to try and make sure I maintain the colony. So in this tank though, this tank had just had them for the longest time, and prior to the pandemic, there was lots of stuff that we wanted to do with this tank. We were talking an avatar tank, and we've got some of the stuff to do that for you, and it's still a super cool idea, and it's going to happen one day, just not right away. And then I've got my good friend, Mr. Kyle Neufeld. You guys might know him as Jordanella. He often appears in my live feeds and stuff. He's a good friend from mine. He lives about an hour away from me, north of Winnipeg. And he has a super cool idea that I've been super stoked to do. And we're going to do a full dirted aquarium. But again, because of all the stuff that's been going on in the world, that's had to been put on the back burner. So this tank here, what's in it right now is in Canada, prior to us not being able to get fish anymore, I was able to snap up 10 Hysoreps nicaraguensis. This is the true Nicaraguan cichlid. It's a super, super awesome fish from Nicaragua. It has a lot of very unique traits about it, but we're going to get into that a little bit later. But for all intents and purposes, we're going to decorate this tank. So I started looking around. Now, you guys remember that little scrapscape, that challenge that Rachel O'Leary put out? I'll put the link up in the corner. But the scrapscape thing, this is basically what we're doing on a larger scale. I didn't really want to go out and get a bunch of stuff because I know this is going to be somewhat of a temporary thing. I just want to give these guys a better looking home. So it's something that's better for me. I can enjoy it. They can enjoy it. Even my daughter Paisley can enjoy it. So I actually went out into the garden, actually went near our chicken coop and started finding different types of rocks and stuff like that. Stuff that looked nice and cool. You know, different styles of rocks. Now, most of the rocks that I'm going to be using are granite. Granite's pretty distinct. It's very, very durable. I'm not going to go into the type. I'm not a geologist, so I'm not going to go into the different types of rock. But this type of rock is extremely dense. It's heavy, so it sinks well. Now, I keep seeing people talk about it on the internet. They keep saying, well, I found a rock at my cottage. I found a rock on the side of the road. What do I do to put it in my fish tank? Please stop, people. Please stop telling people to boil rocks. Please stop telling people to bake them in their oven. If you don't know what type of rock you're dealing with, you could be setting people up for an explosion. So honestly, if you don't know what type of rock it is, maybe do a little bit of work and try and find out what kind of rock it is. I guarantee you, you could probably ask 3 of your neighbors and they'd probably tell you what kind of rock that is. You could probably get your answer that way. But in today's day and age, it's just quick and easy to put it on the internet and hopefully that somebody's going to be the right answer. The problem being is more often than not, you're not getting the right answer. So if you are really, really concerned, say you have delicate fish, like sensitive fish that have softer water parameters and stuff, you might want to know about whether or not that rock contains any levels of calcium. They often talk about using some sort of acid. Now, you can use things like vinegar, lemon juice, these sort of things, but the acidic level of most of these things is extremely low, and you may not even get a reaction, and then you could then in turn put it in your aquarium, and then that product could leach out into the water, and the calcium could come into the water and calcify your water and raise your hardness, your pH and stuff, and then that could be bad depending on the type of fish you're keeping. I'm keeping Central American cichlids, and I'm keeping Mexican C.A.R.E.S, both of which come from mid to hard waters. So if I wanted to even put limestone in this tank, I would probably be fine. It's just not the best conditions for a lot of the plants. Clearly taking Nicaraguan species, Mexican species, and injecting some African anubias, totally a biotope, some African bulbitis fern, totally a biotope. So, but I think it's going to be kind of cool. We've got some nice big clumps of these things. I think we're going to have some fun. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to start going through some of these materials. I showed you a bunch of rocks. I also found this cool stump kind of thing in the thing. This used to be actually from one of the old aquariums. That's actually a piece of Malaysian driftwood, so it's very, very dense. It's still heavy. It was actually out in one of the garden planters out in the yard. It's got chicken droppings on it and stuff like that. And just to kind of send the message home a little bit more to people that keep telling people to bake, soak, all these things to it, I'm not saying you shouldn't clean them off by any means. If you're going to go and take a nice piece of wood off the beach, freshwater beach, you're going to want to rinse it off really, really well. You might want to take a brush to it and make sure that anything loose is off already, and maybe even pressure wash it. Something like that, that's fine. But be careful when you pressure wash. If your pressure washer is used for washing your car and you use soaps in the thing regularly, you could be injecting suds and products into your products that you definitely do not want. So just be cautious of those. But honestly, I'm going to take this piece of wood that was outside my planter that may have chicken droppings on it that we wiped off, and we shook it off on the ground, and I'm going to put it directly in my aquarium. Why? Because Biggs is crazy. This rock, I found it on the ground. It's got grass in it. It's got, look, this looks like a feather. Yeah, there's a feather right there. We're not going to do anything to this rock whatsoever. It's going straight in the tank. So we're going to have some fun. Are you ready, Paisley? Okay, get up here. Come here. Give me a high five. All right, double high fives. We're getting ready to go. Now, one quick thing we got to talk about is the two plants that are the primary candidates. There are actually three. The two plants primarily is the bulbitis, which is the African fern. It can be a fast-growing fern plant. I think it's beautiful. It is a rhizomaceous plant, which means it grows along this beautiful rhizome. It grows this way, obviously. I was just holding it up so you can see it better. But it grows along this rhizome, and then there's the hair roots and stuff. And actually, it cannot be planted. It actually has to be anchored to something. So we're going to anchor this to the driftwood, as well with the anubias. The same sort of thing with the anubias. It's got that beautiful, nice rhizome there. The other thing that we do have a little tiny bit of is, I just found out, is there's some tiny bits of narrow-leaf Java fern, Microsorium terapus. So we're going to use that as well. But to use those, we have to actually anchor them to the driftwood. To anchor them to the driftwood. So I have this giant piece of driftwood. Now I've seen people use all sorts of stuff, and I've used some of those things too in the past when I've done different things, using things like fishing line and crazy glue and stuff like that. But what I'm going to use for these big chunky plants on this big chunky piece of driftwood is these giant steel staples. You guys may have seen me use these before, but I literally have an entire tub of them. I don't know what they were actually used for originally. They were at my cottage. So we've got a hammer, and we've got a bunch of these tiny staples, and we're going to go and tack the rhizomes. The rhizomes honestly just have to be tacked on lightly, and then the roots will go and adhere to the wood, and then the plant will just take off. The really cool thing is that the only thing about that bulbitis is it likes current. So I'm going to put this, probably the larger stump, I'm going to put it up on some rocks probably, and we're going to get that bulbitis so it actually gets the full swing of the current, and that way the current will kind of move it from the discharge of the canister filter. So I'm getting pretty excited. Let's get started. Well, I've got this beautiful piece of anubias, but it's really twisted up over the years. Now it will straighten out with time and stuff, but not really sure where we're going to put that. I got some bean pods that'll go back in. We've got some narrow-leaf Java fern, but I think my favorite is we're going to start off with some of this. This is called bulbitis. Is this good stuff? And we've got some nicer, what I'll call easier pieces of anubias. We'll kind of figure out where they're going to go. And a couple of nice pieces. This might even be Cophifolia. This is Barterii. This is Cophifolia. That's just one broken leaf. Can't do much with that.
You should do that.
Can't do much with one leaf. Okay, let's look for a nice piece of this. This is a good piece of this. Clean it up. All right. Paisley, I think I'm going to need some staples. Do you have any staples? Okay. Can I have some staples? Let's see if this works. Okay. We put one staple in there. Again, it doesn't have to be tacked in really, really well. It's honestly just there to kind of give the plant a footing to get started. Now Now the Malaysian driftwood is extremely dense, so it's not the easiest thing to hammer a nail into or a staple. But they'll work for our purposes. I've used these many times before. Should we put more plants in here? More plants. Paisley likes the plants. So stick them in there. What else we got?
I got a staple.
You got more staples? These ones I'm just kind of pushing into the cracks here on the wood. Maybe they'll anchor just on their own. Here you got to look at that tank now that it's been all fully scaped. Now the plants will all grow in, and you got to remember, bear in mind that most of these plants were literally just rolling around in the current in this tank for months on end. So a lot of them are going to have to take some time to kind of get their shape and their place within the aquarium. The bulbitis has got a bit of sediment on that from stirring up the tank, but I'm sure it'll come back nicely. Couple of different pieces of Anubias there, just kind of tacked in loosely with the staples. I think we'll boil down some leaf litter and get some stuff added to the tank. But the Nicaraguans already look a lot happier in that tank. And honestly, we didn't do much. We added a piece of wood, half a dozen rocks. We nailed some plants to a piece of wood. But overall, I really can't complain. I think it's a cool looking tank. Now these are just juvenile Hypsoreps nicaraguensis. Now a lot of people won't know about this, but it's a very, very unique cichlid from Nicaragua. It's truly sexually dimorphic, meaning you can tell the boys and the girls apart. Now granted, at this stage you cannot. I bet you I could though if I took them out of the water and put them in my hand. I can tell that one over there, the one in the center there, that's a boy. And the one directly in front of me over this rock here is a boy. But as they mature, as they become sexually mature, the boys gain all the spangling or maintain all the spangling in the unpaired fins, the dorsal fin and the anal fin, versus the female will lose all the spangling, and they go through a dramatic color change, both male and female, and they are absolutely stunning. They often call them the Macaw cichlid in the trade. We'll put some pictures of some different adults we've either kept over the years or we've seen in different places. But they are absolutely one of my favorite Central American cichlids to keep. Not just for that, but they have some pretty unique behaviors. Now this species is endemic to Nicaragua, as I said. It is endemic to the lake as well as rivers. It's also endemic going through into Costa Rica as well. My good friend Max at Max Cichlids actually has some first generation Nicaraguensis, and these possibly might have come through him. I'm not 100% certain though. I know the person I got him through often brings in some stuff from Max, but I can't say with certainty that these are 100% from him or not. But regardless, these are still a very, very good quality one, and I'm very, very excited to see how they're going to develop. That's a very dominant male right in the center there. You see his back end facing us, pushing everybody around. But some other very, very interesting facts about this fish is in Nicaragua, particularly in Lago Nicaragua, the lake, this species cannot compete for breeding sites between the other two major species that live in close proximity to it. One being the Parachromis dovii, the wolf cichlid, the giant predator, and the other one being the diminutive but insanely aggressive Nematopus nitropus. Now, the Nematopus is such an aggressive species that it can take on the dovii and maintain and breed successfully to large capacity, even in the same territories.
But the Nicaraguense is just not as musculature in the same ways to be able to defend, fight. So it has a different, and it's adapted differently. And what it does is it once you see the shape, it gets this bullet kind of head shape. And the males get this large, not a gibbosity, not a frontal gibbosity, but they get this cranial shape. And what they do is in the soft, silty sides of the lake, they actually burrow and do a corkscrew kind of maneuver and build these large tunnels into the side, very similar to what plecos do. Plecos in South America are now that they've been introduced all over the world. They dig these giant arm-length tunnels, about 3-4 inches in diameter, depending on the size of the pleco. They can be even bigger, and they build these nuptial chambers. Now Nicaraguense does something similar, and at the end of that tunnel, it digs out and builds kind of a pocket. And that becomes the nuptial chamber where the pair will take the care of their brood and raise and lay their eggs. Now, the thing that's super unique about Nicaraguensis, it's the only cichlid in the world that lays non-adhesive eggs that is a platform spawner. And the reason being is in these silty tunnels where it lives, it's going to be silty. So it's going to be softy mud and stuff like that. There's no rock, there's no surface, there's nothing for this fish to adhere its eggs to. So it's evolved this trait where the eggs are no longer adhesive, and it lays them in this kind of mass, and then the male and female stay in that nuptial chamber and just fan the eggs until the eggs become fry. And then they slowly but surely lead their fry out into the environment, and hopefully some of them they can raise to adulthood, and they can go off and do little Nicaraguense things all on their own. So, hope you enjoyed today's little redo of this tank. A little tale about a super cool fish that I love. Thanks for watching. Thanks, guys.